Have you heard of the Silicon Valley being a boys' club or Silicon Valley organizations being boys' clubs and women not participating in a balanced way in those environments? We wanted to communicate the foundation process, at least in part, by which that exclusion of femininity occurs. Because if we understand precisely when, where, how, and why men exclude women from organizations or women feel excluded, which are two different things. Are we making sense with? There's a difference between men trying to exclude women and women feeling so excluded that they leave. These two dynamics do operate in tandem, and there's also, and they're reflective of each other, and they're different. So if you had a woman who is absolutely determined to be part of an organization, does it make sense? She quite well could be, even if she had to endure a bunch of men competing with her or dismissing her or diminishing her participation or excluding her from their conversations. She could still succeed. It would be tough. And still, it's possible. That said, there are women who have felt the pain of exclusion so poignantly in organizations that they have felt viscerally driven out by the way that they have been interacted with. We won't say treated. We're not saying victimized or anything like that. We'll say interacted with, so we can draw all the drama out of it and just show the skeletal undercarriage or sub process of the dynamic of exclusion in organizations of women. So men have been taught to disassociate from their emotions, to think from cold logic or analysis or intellectualism, rather than relational, collaborative, organizational process. That's historically been more the case. We're not saying it's not changing. It is changing, and thank heaven it is. So this process of men operating in potentially ruthless competitive dynamics without taking into account the nurturing, beneficial, good qualities of relationship building that women would take for granted as necessary and vital and wholesome and healthy and beneficial is like taking all the air out of a room and expecting women to breathe in that room. I mean, it can feel that fundamental. I'm not saying we can feel a lot of what women have gone through that I don't claim to have experienced that in this lifetime, and I don't want to give that impression, and I don't have that hubris. I hope we do want to offer a paradigm of understanding when, where, how, and why this is happening. Because if men don't understand why women leave organizations, or how they exit, and they say, "Oh, couldn't handle the heat, so they got out of the kitchen," or they just don't know how to compete, or "Oh, they're not as strong as we are," or "Oh, we must be smarter." That's baloney. And again, there are other reasons. That said, this dynamic of overt, non-relational competition amongst men that does not create a venue for feminine relational energies, emotional expressions, communications, paradigms, modes of operating, modes of communicating, modes of relating and connecting, and curation and nurturing of ongoing relational dynamics within the organization. Women have different values than men that are well worth understanding by men. They have different strategies, different approaches, different ways of thinking, different ways of arriving at solutions, different ways of defining solutions. We need that in our world. That's a precious, absolutely necessary ingredient that we cannot do without in our organizations, because that's kind of like men driving in a car and they only know how to turn left, or they only know how to turn right. The car's going to veer off out of alignment with true. It's going to veer out of the organizational vehicle will not move in a wholesome, healthy, balanced direction, because there's nothing to ensure that it's got a healthy, wholesome, balanced culture, because women aren't there. So if we learn to care, to value relationships and prioritize them in relationships, and men don't prey upon and look at women's tendencies to want to relate as a point of competitive attack, or if men don't look at any insecurities that women may have because they just feel more than men, and that's insecurities are not weakness. They're a process of emotional self-awareness that it may not as of yet yielded all the fruit of understanding that it will, and it's on the way. So it's valuable, it's necessary, it's right, it's appropriate. So if men competitively prey upon the insecurities of women, or devalue them, or dismiss them, or don't support them, or don't nurture the feminine process in organizations, women leave. Who wouldn't? So if we learn to care and we learn to understand and find the beauty in another or in the process, because women bring, this isn't a physical beauty thing, they bring beauty into the organization, relational beauty, emotional beauty, care, a beautiful, caring, nurturing energy. That's a beautiful thing. And men have not been trained to always appreciate beauty in an industrial environment, or the necessity of it. So if metaphorically, we hope this metaphor makes sense, if a narcissistic, masculine, ego-ified person that was blind wanted to drive a car, and they didn't want to get in trouble for driving a car, and they were going to run over a crowd of people, and they gassed the people beforehand so they were inebriated from the gas. And then they climbed behind the wheel of the car, blind, started up and hit the gas and roll over all the people. And the people don't understand when or how and why they got run over by the narcissistic person in the car. Are we making sense that the authoritative masculine can distort the understandings of people and say, oh, well, the only way to solve things is through the masculine, through authoritative power, through being right, through being competitive, by being domineering, by being powerful, by being threatening? If they've sold that bill of goods, they've gassed humanity. They've kind of inebriated humanity, and then they run over them with a car that they're not operating well. So we hope that cycle of non-optimal influence in the world is understandable, and how both the masculine and the feminine can play into it and not even know that they're doing so while they're being run over by the car.